Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fluent Mic English. I am your host, Sarah, and today we are diving into a topic that I think hits home for almost every language learner out there, the feeling that you are actually wasting your time. We've all been there, right? You spend hours on apps or memorizing conjugation tables only to freeze up when someone asks you a simple question at a coffee shop. Joining me today to help us navigate these murky waters is our resident expert, Mike. Mike, it is great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Sarah. It is wonderful to be here. And you are absolutely right. The biggest tragedy in language learning isn't a lack of talent. It's the misallocation of energy. I see students all the time who are incredibly dedicated, but they're essentially spinning their wheels. They're working hard, but they're not working on the right things to actually achieve what most people want, which is easy, natural conversation in everyday life. You know, it's a bit like trying to learn how to swim by reading a book about the chemistry of water. You can know everything about the H2O molecule, but the moment you jump in the pool, you're still going to sink if you haven't practiced the actual movement.
That is a brilliant analogy, Mike. The chemistry of water versus actually swimming. I think many of our listeners feel exactly like that. They know the chemistry of English, the grammar, the syntax, but the swimming part, the conversation, feels impossible. So let's get into the why. Why do we waste so much time? Is it just the way we were taught in school?
Exactly. Most school systems are designed for testing, not for talking. In a classroom, you're rewarded for being 100% accurate. But in a conversation, accuracy is secondary to connection. If you wait until your sentence is perfect before you speak, the conversation has already moved on without you. You've wasted your time preparing a perfect sentence for a moment that passed 30 seconds ago. It's what I call the perfectionist trap. We spend years building a massive library of vocabulary in our heads, but we never build a fast delivery system to get those words out of our mouths.
Wait, really? So you're saying that knowing more words can actually be a hindrance if we don't know how to use them quickly?
In a way, yes. Imagine you have a kitchen. If you have 10,000 different spices, but they're all disorganized and shoved in the back of a deep cabinet, you'll never use them. You'll just end up using salt and pepper every time because they're on the counter. In English, salt and pepper are your high-frequency phrases. Most learners waste time buying saffron and truffle oil, rare words like nevertheless or heretofore, before they've even mastered how to use the basic stuff effectively in a real-life conversation.
Right, I see. So it's about accessibility. If I want to stop wasting time and start having easy conversations, where do I start? What is the 80-20 of English learning?
The 80-20 rule is huge here. For those who don't know, the Pareto principle suggests that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. In English, about 3,000 words make up 95% of everyday conversation. But even beyond words, it's about functional language. Instead of learning the past perfect continuous tense for 3 weeks, spend 3 hours learning 10 different ways to say, "How's it going?" and "What do you mean?" These are the building blocks of real interaction. If you can clarify what someone said, you can stay in the conversation. If you can't, the conversation ends. That's where the time is wasted, on the stuff that doesn't keep the engine running.
That makes so much sense. It's like building a car. You don't need a leather interior and a high-end sound system if you don't have a working engine and wheels. The engine is that functional language. I've noticed that when I speak a second language, I often get stuck because I'm trying to translate a complex thought from my native tongue. Is that a time waster too?
Oh, absolutely. Translation is a massive processing tax on your brain. It's like trying to run a heavy video game on an old computer. It's going to lag. To have easy conversations, you need to develop islands of fluency. These are preset phrases that you don't translate, you just launch them. For example, "That's a good point," or "I've never thought of it that way." When you use a chunk of language, your brain gets a rest. While you are saying that preset phrase, your brain is actually busy preparing the next part of the sentence. It's a trick that native speakers use all the time without realizing it.
I love that term, islands of fluency. It sounds so much more manageable than learn the entire language. So if I'm a listener and I have 30 minutes a day to practice and I want to stop wasting time, what does a high-efficiency session look like? Walk us through it.
Okay, let's break it down. If you have 30 minutes, throw away the grammar book first. Spend the first 10 minutes on active listening with a transcript. But don't just listen, shadow. Mimic the speaker's speed, their rhythm, their music. Language is as much about melody as it is about meaning. If you sound like a robot, people will struggle to understand you, even if your grammar is perfect. Then spend 10 minutes on scenario rehearsal. Think about a conversation you are likely to have tomorrow. Maybe it's at the grocery store or a work meeting. Actually speak out loud. Answer the questions you think they will ask. And the last 10 minutes, record yourself on your phone. Listen back. It will be painful at first, trust me. Everyone hates their own voice, but you will hear exactly where you were hesitating.
Recording yourself. That is a tough one for people, but I suppose it's like an athlete watching film of their performance. You can't fix what you can't see, or in this case, hear. You mentioned shadowing. I've heard that term before, but could you explain why that is better than just repeating words?
Sure. Repeating is listen, stop, repeat. Shadowing is listen and speak at the same time. It forces your brain to bypass the translation phase. You don't have time to think, okay, the verb goes here, because you're already saying the next word. It builds muscle memory in your mouth. You know, Sarah, our mouths are full of muscles. If those muscles aren't used to making the specific shapes of English sounds, they get tired and slow. Shadowing is like taking your tongue in lifts to the gym. It makes the physical act of speaking easy, which reduces the mental stress of the conversation.
Exactly. And when the physical part is easy, the mental part can focus on the actual connection with the other person. It really is collaborative. I think another way people waste time is by consuming too much passive content. You know, watching Netflix for 4 hours with subtitles in their native language and calling it study. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's the great Netflix lie. We tell ourselves we are learning, but really we're just being entertained. Now, there's nothing wrong with entertainment, but let's be honest, it's not high-efficiency practice. If you want to use movies to learn, you have to be active. Watch 5 minutes, write down 3 phrases you liked, and then try to use those phrases in 3 different sentences out loud. If you aren't producing the language, you aren't learning to speak. It's the difference between being a spectator at a tennis match and actually holding the racket. You can watch Roger Federer all day, but your backhand isn't going to get any better until you hit a ball.
That is such a powerful point. The spectator versus player mentality. I think we often feel like we are players because we spend so much time around the language, but if we aren't hitting the ball, we aren't improving. Mike, we are coming toward the end of our time, but I want to touch on one more thing. For someone who feels discouraged, who feels like they've already wasted years, is it too late to switch gears? Is it hard to unlearn those slow academic habits?
It's never too late. In fact, adult learners have an advantage because we can be more strategic. We can use logic and analogies like we are doing now to understand the process. The unlearning part is mostly about letting go of the fear of being wrong. Start small. Tomorrow, go out and have a micro conversation, just a 2-sentence interaction. Use one of your islands of fluency. When you see it works, the boost in confidence will do more for your English than a month of solo study. Confidence is the fuel that makes the whole machine run. Don't waste your time being perfect. Spend your time being present.
Don't waste your time being perfect. Spend your time being present. I think that is the perfect note to end on. Mike, thank you so much for these insights. I think our listeners are going to feel a lot more focused after this. To everyone listening, remember, your time is your most valuable resource. Don't spend it all on the chemistry of water. Get in the pool and start swimming. This has been Sarah and Mike for Fluent Mic English. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Keep practicing.